All right, so I'm kind of late to the party on this one, but do you remember the story from about a month ago about the billionaire tech investor who wanted to build his own submersibles, and he wanted to do it for cheap because he wanted to sell rides down to the Titanic for people? Well, he ended up dying on one of those. They thought that it might have just lost propulsion, be down at the bottom of the ocean just chilling, and they had 96 hours worth of oxygen. In reality, there was a ship not too far away that heard a sonar ping that was unmistakably a crush depth event. So, like, that thing was gone. But it turned out that all this video surfaced of the guy before all this happened, where he was like, I like to be remembered for all the rules I broke. They said you're not supposed to make a submersible out of carbon fiber. Well, we did that. General MacArthur said you're remembered for the rules that you did break, not for the ones that you followed. But it should be noted that General MacArthur was sacked by Harry S. Truman during the Korean War because General MacArthur openly talked about using nukes in the Korean War conflict against China and wanted to expand the war to take over all of China. And MacArthur was a pretty complicated dude, but that's not where I would be drawing inspiration from. And all this talk about this billionaire dude who's building submersibles and all that, and breaking all of the rules and hiring young people and all this. Turned out he was hiring young people just so he could cut more corners instead of getting experienced people, some of which had already told him, like, hey, you're building a death trap here. This is not good. This is bad, in fact. He just didn't listen to him. He didn't care. He went full speed ahead because of something I like to call the men of the mind fallacy. The phrase "the men of the mind" comes from Ayn Rand in her book Atlas Shrugged. There are some people that are just so much smarter than all of us that they're the ones who will advance humanity, and we should just let them do whatever they want. We should lower their taxes and deregulate their industries just so they can feel free to be innovators and job creators, and whatever they do, they're the smartest people in the room, so it must be right. While failing to realize that these people are human beings and are totally capable of just huffing their own farts, believing that they don't stink, and then eventually paying the ultimate price for it. Wall Street is filled with men of the mind, innovators, financial geniuses who every 15 or 20 years crash the world economy. Who knows how it happens, I think people forget about market forces and the free markets and capitalism and, big corporations. They think, they just do what's in their best interest. No, they don't. Not all the time. They're made up of human beings. These hedge funds, these big companies, all these Wall Street guys, it's all headed by human beings who make mistakes. At some point, though, there's a portion of the U.S. population, and really people all over the world, but this sort of brain rot has really taken hold here in America, where if you get enough money and enough power, people think that you're incapable of wrongdoing, and they will just believe whatever you say. They will just be like, well, this is a man of the mind. He's so much smarter than the rest of us plebeians, Ayn Rand was famous for trying to push this narrative, not just in her books, but in speeches she gave in public. There was one very famous one that should tell you everything you need to know about Ayn Rand, where she was against education for special needs children. She used the R word. I'll let you try to use your imagination to figure out which one that is. But she used that word, and she says, well, if you spend all this time and money trying to teach these underdeveloped children, you end up with a happy idiot, I guess. But nobody's talking about the schools for the gifted. Where are the schools for the gifted? Oh, yes, Ayn Rand. Why won't anybody help the geniuses? They're so unprivileged. They're so disadvantaged. The geniuses. Won't someone think of the rich geniuses? And thus began, in the 80s, schools for the gifted began popping up. Advanced placement courses. Now, did those schools end up breeding the next group of men of the mind, the innovators of the next generation? That remains to be seen. We don't know what kind of impact that's had, if any at all. But I can tell you one thing. There are an awful lot, I would say the vast majority of kids who go into schools for the gifted and advanced placement courses, a lot of them wash out and feel like they devalue themselves, like they fail. Because they were kind of bright, a little bit ahead of the curve in a few subjects, and then their parents thought, he must be a genius. And then they put him in this advanced placement course, and I mean, I was friends with kids in AP classes. And man, they had so much fucking homework. Every day, they were just pounding them with all this homework, all these courses. They were doing like research papers like every other week. They didn't have any time to be a kid. And I've kept in contact with a lot of these people, and guess what? I make more money than them, and I dropped out of college. I make six figures and they don't. You know, they're loaded down with student debt because they were taught that, you know, you're a genius, you know, you should go to college and get this like super nice job, and the loans will pay for themselves eventually. And then guess what? 2008, we all graduated from high school, and then the economy collapsed that year. The job market never recovered. You know, the jobs we were promised that were going to pay like six figures after 5 years dried up. Also, there were so many young people with college degrees. Well, now all of a sudden it wasn't valued that much anymore, and they never got they never got the big high-paying jobs they were promised because, well, now they just had their pick of the litter. And when you have a bunch of similarly qualified people, the only way that you can sort of negotiate is, hey, I'll work for less and under worse conditions. I'll work weekends and overtime for no extra pay. That's the only power you have in negotiation. It becomes a race down to the bottom. But anyway, on to men of the mind. You know, this pursuit of men of the mind has left this whole like wreckage of an entire generation that went through AP classes and gained nothing from it. If anything, they missed out on their childhood and adolescence. But it also leads to this complete brain rot, which now leads to brain rot in politics because, well, we had a president who was a billionaire. You know, Elon Musk seems to be very interested in politics. You know, the way he cozies up to a lot of conservative personalities and commentators and stuff. He's obviously trying to make some sort of push for something. We don't know what's going to come of it, but he obviously has preference to one side of the political aisle. And I remember when Donald Trump was campaigning in 2015, and a lot of people were saying, like, let's just listen to the way this guy talks. He sounds kind of dumb. And I remember people would say, well, he can't be dumb. He's a billionaire. Billionaires can't be dumb. He didn't make $1 billion by accident. In reality, you could definitely make $1 billion by accident. Like, nobody can look at what Elon Musk has done to Twitter. You know, basically burning $44 billion down to the ground. Making the site worse, giving it the worst rebrand ever. This will go down in history as worse than when Yahoo bought Tumblr and they banned all the porn. I'm telling you, Twitter and X is gonna be so much fucking worse. So much worse. I don't know how anybody could look at that and say, oh yeah, Elon Musk is a total genius and is right about everything. You know, being a billionaire just means that you're really smart in a few areas. It doesn't mean that you're a super genius who's great at everything. I said this in the Elon Musk video where he finally bought Twitter. And if you go back on my channel and you look at that, and there was like one person who commented like, man, I think you're really naive in a wet behind the ears kind of way. Like, he's going to do so much you don't even know, dude. Because this guy who commented believed in the men of the mind. You know, he's a man of the mind. He's going to advance human civilization so far, you know, it'll be ridiculous. It's like that Bankman-Fried guy. I forget his first name. Yeah, it's on screen right now. But that guy who was in charge of FTX, total fraudster. And there were people doing videos of him saying like, oh, he's going to give away all this money. He's a philanthropist. Oh, he's going to be a trillionaire one day. He's just 29 years old. He's a man of the mind. And people didn't call out the obvious fraud for what it was, and they didn't look into him because he was a man of the mind. He's so much smarter than us. When the guy was just a total fucking criminal, total huckster. You know, Michael Bloomberg. You remember Michael Bloomberg ran for president in 2024? Yeah, a lot of people forget about that because he sat out Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada, and then put all his eggs in one basket, South Carolina. I actually sat out the first 2 debates and just thought South Carolina was going to be his like ticket to the big time. I guess he had some donors who were just huffing his farts or whatever. But he spent like $100 million on a total ad blitz in South Carolina. I think he got 2% of the vote. No, I think it was 5%. Either way, it was single digits. It was nothing. Like I remember there were billboards everywhere down here. There's radio ads. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, wasn't he like the Republican mayor of New York City and then became independent and now he's trying to run as a Democrat and he's just a total fraudster. And it just so happened to be, this is the year of, George Floyd and all the police protests and everything. And here was a guy whose number one accomplishment in New York City was stop and frisk. And you're going to try to run for the Democrat primary. Okay, bud, let's see how that works out for you. But again, everybody thought he's a man of the mind. He's a billionaire. He's so smart. And really, he just took $100 billion or $100 million with an M of his own money and just burned it down to the ground. Nobody wanted to vote for that guy. But you see this brain rot on TV and politics. If you have the misfortune of ever watching Fox Business or CNBC, that's the business channel for NBC News and all that. They love the men of the mind. Oh, the geniuses, the millionaires, the CEOs, the billionaires. The movers, the shakers, the decision makers. And they just think they can do no wrong. They're the smartest guys in the room. Well, you know who else, like to see themselves as the smartest guys in the room? Enron. Total fraud, totally just made up bullshit. I just want everybody to realize that just because you have $1 billion in the bank, it does not make you a better person or a smarter person. They are still just as capable of crime, of being stupid, of being completely ignorant about the world around them. Just because you have $1 billion in the bank does not mean that you know everything there is to know. It's ridiculous that I have to spell this out for people and be like, hey, this guy's actually stupid. This guy's actually an idiot when it comes to running a social media site or building submersibles or whatever. And anytime anybody tries to tell you, well, he made $1 billion, you can't be stupid if you make $1 billion. Just remind them there was one time a billionaire who tried to build a carbon fiber submersible when every expert told him that was a bad idea. And he was huffing his farts so hard that he built that submersible, went down to go see the Titanic, and never came back. He believed he was a man of the mind, and it cost him his life and the life of a few other people. So just remember, just because you have a lot of money in the bank, that just means that you have a lot of money in the bank. It doesn't mean anything else. You're just as stupid and just as predisposed towards being surrounded by yes men and believing that your farts don't stink as everybody else. Doesn't make you special, just makes you rich. Anyway, I'm Slapshoes, and just be wary of everybody around you, especially people who have a lot of money, because they're just as big of criminals as everybody else.